The 40-yard dash is one of the best indicators of an elite, powerful athlete, and even the average person. So if you want a 40-yard dash time that'll give you a chance to get a contract in the NFL, professional soccer, MLB, and professional basketball, then in this video, I'll show you the smartest way to improve your 40-yard dash, even if you only have 8 weeks. And this is the science-backed training method I've used on my athletes in the Speed Academy program to run these 40-yard dash times. The first thing we need to understand is what a faster 40-yard dash time requires. Most athletes treat the 40-yard dash like they're training for powerlifting or for the 100-meter dash. But what if I told you these training methods are not the most optimal way to improve your 40-yard dash time or your short explosive speed? So how should we train to run a faster 40-yard dash? Well, the first thing is we need to develop proper sprint mechanics that favor short explosive speed. Second, we need to develop our raw explosiveness plus acceleration development, which means we need to develop a high amount of peak power and horizontal force. Third, we have to expose the body to max velocity development. That way we can improve our maximal speed and our overall speed potential. Now it's important to make sure your training fits your specific needs. Some athletes are going to need higher velocity work more often, and some athletes are going to struggle with acceleration more than their max velocity phase, which means they need to be working on horizontal force and acceleration mechanics more often. Now, if you're a slower athlete, let's say you're running anywhere above 5.0 seconds in a 40-yard dash, you just need overall general explosiveness development. You will see significant improvements from technical work and general force production development. If you're an intermediate to advanced athlete who cannot run under 1.7 seconds in the 10-yard fly with no reaction time, then you need acceleration development. If you're an intermediate to advanced athlete who cannot run sub 1.0 seconds in the 10-yard fly, then you need max velocity development. This is a simple way to understand what you need specifically, but in general, if you're not running under 4.8 seconds in a 40-yard dash, you probably need a mixture of acceleration development, max velocity development, general force production, and sprint technique improvement. But speaking of sprint technique, we'll cover that first and I'll show you my favorite drills later. Now that you understand the 3 most important training categories to improve your 40-yard dash, which is technique, acceleration, and max velocity, you need to know how to train each individual quality to make sure you're getting the best results. If there's a specific athletic trait that you're interested in and nothing else, then just use the timestamps on the screen and you can skip straight to it. Your explosive speed has a lot to do with how much mass-specific force you can produce, but if you don't produce it at the right angles, you have no chance at running faster. This study shows the importance of proper sprint form on reducing injuries and maximizing sprint performance. Think of sprinting properly like setting up a good set of dominoes. If you set up the dominoes correctly, it will keep going and it will look visually satisfying and make it to the end of the blocks. But if you mess up one of the first few dominoes, then it won't fall correctly and it won't make it to the end. This dominoes concept is what I call advantages. So what techniques do we need in acceleration to set up our advantages to spring our body forward? Well, in acceleration, we care about 3 things. First is stance in the 40-yard start. This will set up effective acceleration. Second, we want projection. This also includes posture, arm action, and leg action. So think about how well you project your body angle, and even the projection of the thighs and shins, and how we use our arms and legs to apply force correctly in the right angles. Third is switching. So this is how fast we can switch the thighs and have fast thigh angular velocity. This is also how closely you can land the foot under your center of mass and how well we can stabilize the glutes, quads, and pelvis to produce force fast and efficiently. The best drills to improve these qualities would be the horizontal resisted 1-step or the standing hip thrust, the 7-step cone drill where we set up cones that fit the right stride length needed for the 40-yard dash time you want. If you want that stride length chart, I'll put it in the link in the description. And then with these cones, we want to focus on landing on our center of mass to reach each cone. This will ensure that we're pushing hard enough to put our center of mass above the cone. That way we're not just reaching to hit the desired stride length that we want for our 40-yard dash time. And lastly is resisted sprints. We could go heavier for 30 to 50% of our body weight and go around 5 to 10 yards. This is a great way to naturally force your body in the correct positions and produce force at the right angles. Now to pair this together, it's best to start with a warm-up, then go into resisted drills and sprints. Then after your sprint session, you can do isometric holds and pushes for the strength stimulus. These drills helped one of the athletes I trained, Jalen, go from struggling to break 5 seconds in a 40-yard dash to running 4.48 seconds in a 40-yard dash and getting college offers by using our training program, the Speed Academy. Click the link in the description to join today. Now that you have a proper technical model to have a good 40-yard dash, You need this next athletic trait to develop the horsepower needed to run fast 40-yard time. Part 2, force production. Vertical force production is one of the most important traits for all athleticism. But for the 40-yard dash, we don't just need vertical force. We also must develop our horizontal force production. Research shows that 0 to 20 yards horizontal force production is this percent, which means you need to be able to handle and produce these forces in order to be fast. This means if your goal is to run a fast 40-yard dash time, you need to develop the force and strength that moves your center of mass forward, not just up and down. Now, to develop this, we first must produce force at the right direction. Is when we project our torso at a 35 to 45 degree angle. This usually comes from technique, but we should also try to expose our body to the angles of the shins and the torso that are needed to produce high quality horizontal force and acceleration. So what you need to have is strength in the quads, calves, glutes, and soleus to withstand and produce these forces in deeper shin angles. My favorite way to develop this strength is by doing resisted sprints, med ball starts, kneeling starts, and multi-jumps for distance like broad jumps and standing triple jumps. Now in the weight room, we can do horizontal orientation based lifts like the hip thrust, the standing hip thrust, and any posterior chain lifts are also good for transfer here too. For acceleration speed, it's also helpful to improve your general qualities that improve your ability to get lower and jump high from a standstill specifically. The best weight room exercises to improve this quality would be deep squats, seated calf raises, and basic straight bar deadlifts or trap bar deadlifts. All of these are general qualities that might not transfer directly to your sprint speed, but they all have their own importance in the long run of training. For overall short acceleration development, the most important thing is going to be short acceleration sprints that are timed and under 30 yards of distance per sprint. Since we've seen the research that horizontal peak power drops off in short acceleration sprints just after 5 to 20 yards. But you can't only focus on acceleration speed. We also need max velocity or upright sprint speed. Part 3, max velocity. The third thing we need to develop is our maximum velocity speed. This will be broken down into two general categories: how to develop max velocity running mechanics and how to develop your reactive strength and stretch shortening cycle, which will be the main facilitator for force absorption and production in max velocity sprinting, in your overall max velocity speed potential. Now, for most athletes, max velocity running mechanics will come from structure. What this means is no matter how many sprint drills or cues you try, if your body simply cannot handle the forces it's receiving, hit or reach specific ranges of motion like hip flexion range of motion, store and release elastic energy effectively and fast, then you will never improve even if you keep trying all these drills and cues. Now there's 5 specific goals that matter in order to run fast max velocity. In order to run fast and max velocity. If you aren't able to do most of these 5 things, then you know you have a weak link in this specific area. Number 1 is the foot and ankle. If you're stabbing the ground with the foot under your hip and your foot is simply giving out or hits improperly, then you have poor ankle stiffness. And this is going to be one of the biggest things stopping you from running faster in general, same for acceleration and max velocity, if you don't get your ankle stiffness fixed. And having poor ankle stiffness will stop you from rebounding and getting off the ground fast enough to be fast. Number 2, the angle of attack. In max velocity, the angle of attack should be almost straight up and down. Number 3 is how big of a range you get in the air and how much of that is in front of your center of mass. You want to make sure that you're attacking from the top down. And it's hard to hit the ground with power when the foot is attacking from behind the hip. But it's much easier to hit the ground with power when the knee is in front of the hip. Number 4 is posture. Simply try to stand up relatively tall. You don't want to be too tall where you're leaning backwards, but you essentially want to have your chest over your hips slightly, so not a forward lean, but just a big heart. And then you want to try to be decently tall in the hips and in the chest. Number 5 is pelvis position. This is mainly just to avoid an excessive anterior pelvic tilt. This will cause easy hamstring injuries and excessive backside mechanics when we want a little bit more frontside mechanics. And we'll get this from a neutral pelvis tilt, especially after toe off. A quick bonus that I'm not going to edit is going to be dorsiflexion of the foot and landing on the forefoot. So you're not landing on your toes, you're landing on the forefoot or midfoot with a good dorsiflexion of the foot. This will let you use a stretch shortening cycle and be nice and elastic off the ground. This could also go in the ankle stiffness category. Now you know what is scientifically correct for speed, but how do you train it without wasting time with drills and cues? Well, here are my favorite bang for a buck drills that will develop your max velocity mechanics without a lot of cueing at all. The first drill is going to be mini hurdle sprints, around 4 to 6 hurdles each sprint, and 10 to 20 yard buildup. Second is going to be ankle dribbles, knee dribbles, and dribble bleeds. The third is going to be any version of bound into a stride out, especially straight leg bounds and flex leg bounds into a 10 to 20 yard stride. These work well because drills that force you into positions you want without consciously trying to improve your technique during the drill is the best transfer over to overall sprint mechanics. We know from research that the human brain can't truly focus on multiple things at once, but rather switches focus rapidly between tasks, a phenomenon often called multitasking. While studies suggest that the conscious mind can handle a small number of tasks, it's typically only 1 to 3. So why would we try to improve multiple things at once when sprinting is already one of the most coordinative movements the human body can do? We don't, or we shouldn't try to. But now that you know how to improve your technique for max velocity, if you can't produce the amount of mass-specific force needed at high speeds, then you simply won't be fast. That's where we cover the second part of max velocity development, what I like to call elastic power. And this can be divided into a few categories that we'll talk about briefly. Number one is going to be your strength. This is mainly how isometrically strong you are in small ranges of motion. Number two is plyometrics. This is how often and well you do ankle dominant plyometrics to not only improve how fast your ground contact times are, but how high of ground reaction forces you can handle and produce in that small time frame. Number three is sprint speed exposure. This is simply how much and how well you expose the body to high velocity movements. For strength, some of you think you need to just keep progressing your squats and deadlifts. Now, this would help with your acceleration, but sadly, this is not the case for max velocity development. You see, the positions we produce force in upright sprints are more extended knee joint angles, or at deepest, a quarter squat angle, which means we would get more from Olympic lifts, quarter squats, calf raises, or any of these lifts where we are in minimal joint angles producing high amounts of force at fast speeds. But specifically for this video, I will cover isometric strength. And I'm a big fan of Cal Dietz' spring ankle positions. There are 6 positions you need to be able to hit for 60 seconds each leg. If you can't hit them for 60 seconds, then build up each week until you can. And they cover all the important positions not just for max velocity, but overall athleticism needed in sports. And if you want these 6 spring ankle positions programmed for you, then check out our free speed plus ankle stiffness program in the description. But if you have isometric strength but lack reactive strength, then none of this will matter. Reactive strength in simple terms is a mixture of how fast you can get off the ground and how high you can get off the ground combined. This is crucial for max velocity development. Isometrics are great for building the base of reactive strength, but one of the best methods that's worked for years will always be plyometrics. Now for plyometrics, it's important to start your body off at the level it can handle, which I cover in this video about a full guide on plyometrics. But the best bang for buck plyometrics are going to be the plyometrics with high forward momentum. Think of the difference between a standstill repeat jump or jumping forward and getting off the ground fast. So getting off the ground fast and high is anything under 0.2 seconds. So the exercises that fit these categories would be hurdle hops, bounding series, upright sprints, and pogo variations are all great. Lastly, you need max velocity exposure. Exposure just means sprinting above 95% of your maximum speed. And we want to do this maybe 1 to 2 times per week, which is optimal for speed development. This is because research shows to improve max velocity, one of the only ways is just to do max effort sprints. Max effort being the crucial point here. Most athletes think you need to run 60 to 200 meters to improve max velocity, but in sport, we'll never hit those distances, and they aren't even best for max velocity development or 40-yard. What we want is flying 10s to 20s with a 10 to 30 yard buildup, or 30 to 50 yard timed sprints with high rest in between each set. Now, with all this information on what you need to improve your 40-yard dash time, what's the best program or weekly training setup we should follow to actually improve your speed? I'll give you an outline of how I program my workouts to improve the 40-yard dash time in the Speed Academy program for my athletes who ran this and this in the 40-yard dash. Link in the description to join. The most simple way is to train 2 times per week. Day 1 is the acceleration session with a dynamic warm-up, resisted sprint series, jumps for distance, and a non-counter movement explosive med ball toss, a compound squat, and a hinge. Day 2, 2 to 4 days after our acceleration session, we can do a max velocity speed session, We can do dynamic warm-up into straight leg and flex leg bounds into 20-yard strides, flying 10s, single leg bounds. Then in the weight room, we can do step-ups and ankle isometric and glute isometric pushes and holds. Cycle these 2 workouts consistently for 4 to 12 weeks and you won't just see short-term gains, you'll see long-term improvement in your speed development. Now that you know how to improve your 40-yard dash time, you need to know how to have proper sprint sessions so you can continuously increase your speed. So watch this video right here on the #1 speed exercise that you need to have in every single program to sprint faster.